Queen Lyra stood alone on the observation deck of her flagship, the Starbound Crown. Through the massive window, she watched her fleet burn. Ships that had served the Valari Empire for generations now drifted as broken metal in the cold darkness of space. Orange flames flickered and died as oxygen ran out. Escape pods launched into the void like scattered seeds, but she knew most would never be rescued. The Nexus Nebula stretched behind the destruction like a purple curtain. It was beautiful. It was terrible. And somewhere in that beauty, the Keth Dominion was preparing its next attack. 3 star systems had fallen in just 2 rotations. Billions of Valari citizens were now under Keth control. Reports spoke of labor camps, of families torn apart, of entire cities going silent. The insectoid conquerors showed no mercy. They never had. Lyra pressed her hand against the cold glass. Her reflection stared back at her, tall with silver skin that shimmered like moonlight on water and eyes the color of deep oceans. She had been queen for 30 cycles. She had overseen peace, prosperity, and the golden age of her people. Now she would oversee their extinction. Her advisor, Commander Seok, entered the observation deck. He was older than her, with battle scars across his face and a mechanical arm that replaced the one he lost in the First Keth War. He had served her father before her, and his father before that. His loyalty was absolute, but even loyalty could not hide the truth in his eyes. "The council is waiting, my queen," he said. His voice was steady, but she heard the weight beneath it. "What will they tell me that I do not already know?" Lyra did not turn from the window. "That we are losing? That our fleet is half destroyed? That no one in the galaxy will help us?" Seok stood silent for a moment. "The trading station Orin Prime has agreed to host a gathering. Representatives from 47 species will attend. It may be our last chance to find allies." Lyra finally turned. "Allies? The Keth have conquered 6 civilizations in the past decade. Every species in the galaxy knows what happens to those who oppose them. Why would anyone risk their own destruction to save us?" "Because you will ask them," Seok said simply. "And because you are the only leader in this galaxy who has never broken a promise." The journey to Orin Prime took 2 days. Lyra spent most of that time preparing her speech. She wrote and rewrote her words 100 times. She practiced in front of mirrors, in front of her guards, in front of empty rooms. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt strong enough. Orin Prime was a massive station built into an asteroid at the edge of neutral space. It belonged to no empire and served all species equally. Traders, smugglers, refugees, and diplomats all walked its corridors together. It was said that more deals were made in Orin Prime's bars than in all the Senate halls of the galaxy combined. The Great Hall was the station's largest chamber. It could hold 10,000 beings, and today it was nearly full. Lyra walked to the central platform, her royal guards forming a protective circle around her. She looked out at the crowd. She saw Mordai merchants with their 4 arms and calculating eyes. She saw Breen warriors, massive and covered in thick fur, watching with arms crossed. She saw Tinari diplomats, small and quick, whispering among themselves. She saw representatives from dozens of species, some she recognized, some she did not. All of them watched her, all of them waited. Lyra took a deep breath and began to speak. "I am Lyra, Queen of the Valari Empire. I come before you not as a ruler demanding tribute, but as a mother begging for the lives of her children." Her voice echoed through the hall. "The Keth Dominion has declared war on my people. In 2 rotations, they have destroyed half our fleet and conquered 3 of our systems. At this rate, the Valari will cease to exist within a cycle." She paused, letting the words settle. "I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that this is not your war. You are thinking that if you stay quiet, If you stay neutral, the Keth will pass you by. You are thinking that the Valari are already lost, and there is no point in dying for a lost cause." The silence in the hall was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. "But I tell you this truth. The Keth will not stop with us. They have never stopped. Every civilization they have conquered, they said the same thing. Stay neutral, stay safe, do not interfere. And one by one, those civilizations watched their neighbors fall. And one by one, they fell too." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes sweeping across the crowd. "I am not asking you to die for the Valari. I am asking you to fight for your own futures, because if the Keth destroy us, you will be next. And when your time comes, when their ships darken your skies and their soldiers march through your streets, you will look around for allies, and there will be no one left." She stopped. She had said everything she could say. She had given them every argument, every reason, every plea. The hall remained silent. Then, one by one, the representatives began to look away. The Mordai merchants suddenly found their tablets very interesting. The Breen warriors studied the ceiling. The Tenari diplomats whispered and shook their heads. No one stepped forward. No one spoke in support. Lyra felt her heart crack. She had expected this. She had prepared herself for this. But expecting pain and feeling it were two very different things. "Please," she whispered. The word escaped before she could stop it. A queen should never beg, but she was no longer just a queen. She was a desperate woman watching her world end. Still, no one moved. Lyra closed her eyes. She had failed. Her people would die and their memory would fade, and the galaxy would forget they had ever existed. She turned to leave the platform, to walk back to her ship and face the end with whatever dignity she had left. Then she heard it. A voice, small, quiet, but steady. "I will fight." Lyra stopped. She turned back toward the crowd. The representatives were looking around, confused, trying to find the source of the voice. In the back of the hall, a single figure stood. He was shorter than most beings in the room. His skin was soft and pale, without scales or fur or armor. He had dark hair and dark eyes and a face that showed every emotion he felt. He was human. Lyra had heard of humans. They were newcomers to galactic society, having only discovered faster-than-light travel a few generations ago. They were considered primitive, fragile, unremarkable. Their homeworld was a small blue planet on the edge of an unimportant system. Most species barely noticed them. Yet here one stood, alone among thousands, offering what no one else would give. The crowd parted as the human walked forward. He moved without hesitation, his footsteps echoing in the silent hall. Beings twice his size stepped aside, watching with curiosity and confusion. He stopped before the platform and looked up at Lyra. "My name is Tay," he said. "I am nobody important. I have no army, I have no fleet. I have a cargo ship with a bad engine and a crew of 5. He paused. "But where I come from, we do not watch people die when we can help. If you need someone to fight beside you, I will fight." Lyra stared at him. Behind her, she heard Siok make a sound of disbelief. Around them, the crowd began to murmur. "You are one human," Lyra said slowly. "The Keth have millions of soldiers. What can one human do against an empire?" Tay smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen darkness and learned to walk through it anyway. "You would be surprised," he said, "what one human can do." The crowd in the great hall did not know what to make of the human. Some laughed openly. A Breen warrior slapped his massive thigh and roared with amusement. Mordai merchants exchanged knowing glances. The Tenari diplomats whispered that the human must be insane or drunk or both. But Tai did not move. He stood before Queen Lyra with his shoulders straight and his eyes steady. He had said his piece. Now he waited for her answer. Lyra studied him carefully. She had ruled for 30 cycles. She had learned to read beings, to see past their words to the truth beneath. In most faces, she saw fear hidden behind bravery or greed hidden behind generosity. But in this human's face, she saw something rare. She saw honesty. "Why?" she asked. "You have no connection to my people. You have nothing to gain. Why would you risk your life for strangers?" Tay thought about the question. "When I was young," he said, "there was a fire in my neighborhood. A building was burning. Everyone stood outside and watched. They said the emergency teams were coming. They said it was too dangerous to go inside. They said someone else would handle it." He paused. "There was a child on the 3rd floor. I could hear her screaming." The hall had gone quiet again. Even the Breen warrior had stopped laughing. "Did you save her?" Lyra asked. "I tried. The floor collapsed. I broke 3 ribs and burned my hands so badly I could not hold anything for 2 months. Tay held up his hands. Faint scars crossed his palms like pale rivers. "But yes, I got her out." "And if you had failed? If you had died?" Tay shrugged. "Then I would have died knowing I tried. That is enough for me." Commander Sayok stepped forward, his mechanical arm clicking as he moved. "My queen, this is foolish. One human cannot change the course of a war. His species is weak, primitive. They have no enhanced strength, no natural armor, no special abilities. They are perhaps the most unremarkable beings in the galaxy." Tay looked at Sayok without anger. "You are right," he said. "We are not strong like the Breen. We cannot see in darkness like the Tinari. We do not live for centuries like the Velari. By galactic standards, we are nothing special." "Then why should we accept your help?" Tay smiled that strange, sad smile again. "Because we have been fighting since we crawled out of the mud. We have fought each other, fought nature, fought everything that tried to kill us. We have no claws, so we made spears. We have no armor, so we made shields. We have no wings, so we built machines that fly. Every problem we ever faced, we solved by refusing to accept defeat." He looked at Sayok directly. "Your people fight with honor. You follow rules. You believe in fair combat. And those are good things. But the Keth do not care about honor. They do not follow rules. They attack supply lines. They strike civilians. They use every dirty trick in the book because they want to win. And winning is all that matters to them." Sayok's expression hardened. "And you think humans are different?" "I think humans have been fighting dirty wars since we discovered fire. I think we invented guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, and total war before we invented the wheel. I think that if you want someone who knows how to fight an enemy that does not play fair, you could do worse than a human." Lyra raised her hand before Sayok could respond. "Commander, I want you to research human history, everything you can find, their wars, their tactics, their weapons. Bring me a full report before the end of the day." Sayok bowed stiffly. "As you command, my queen." The hours passed slowly. Lyra gave Tay quarters on her flagship while Sayok compiled his research. She did not expect much. Humanity was young, after all. How much could they have learned in such a short time? She was wrong. Sayok returned with data files that made no sense. Wars that lasted for years, covering entire continents. Weapons that could level cities in a single flash of light. Soldiers who marched through frozen wastelands, who crossed burning deserts, who fought in jungles so thick they could barely see the enemy 10 feet away. "This cannot be accurate," Sayok said, his voice troubled. "This says they fought a single war that killed 70 million of their own kind. 70 million. In less than a decade." Lyra stared at the numbers. "That is more than the entire population of some systems. It gets worse." Sayok pulled up more files. "They developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, not once, but many times over. They built thousands of these weapons and pointed them at each other. Why would any species create such things? To prevent war, apparently. The theory was that if everyone could destroy everyone else, no one would dare attack. Siok shook his head. It worked. Mostly. Lyra felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had thought humans were primitive. She had thought them harmless. But now she understood that she had been looking at them wrong. They were not harmless because they were weak. They were harmless because they chose to be. Because they had already faced the darkness inside themselves and learned to control it. What would happen if they stopped controlling it? She called Tai to the command deck. He entered alone, looking small among the towering Valari officers. But he did not seem intimidated. He simply walked to the center of the room and waited. "I have read about your species," Lyra said. "Your history is disturbing." Tai nodded. "It is not pretty. We are not proud of everything we have done." "You created weapons that could end all life on your world." "Yes." "You fought wars that killed millions of your own people." "Yes." "Why should I trust a species capable of such destruction?" Tai was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "Because we survived it. Every terrible thing we did to each other, every dark path we walked, we came back from it. We learned. We grew. We are still learning and growing." He stepped forward. "The Keth think cruelty makes them strong. They think fear is power. But they have never faced a species that knows cruelty better than they do, that has felt fear deeper than they can imagine, and still chose to keep going." Lyra looked at this small, soft creature standing in the heart of her warship. He had no fangs, no claws, no natural weapons of any kind. And yet, for the first time since the war began, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. "Commander Siok," she said slowly, "prepare a strike team. Give the human whatever resources he needs." Siok's eyes widened. "My queen, surely you cannot—" "I have made my decision." Lyra's voice was firm. "We have tried fighting the Keth way, the honorable way. We have lost every battle. Perhaps it is time to try something different." She turned back to Tai. "You said you have a crew of 5? "I do. They are good people. Loyal. Not soldiers, but they know how to survive." "Send for them. And prepare yourself, human. You wanted to fight in this war. Now you will show us how." Tai bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, Queen Lyra. You will not regret this." As he turned to leave, Siok caught his arm. The old warrior's mechanical fingers gripped tight enough to bruise. "If you fail," Siok said quietly, "if you get our soldiers killed with your alien tactics, I will end you myself." Tai met his eyes without flinching. "If I fail," he said, "you will not need to. The Keth will do it for you." He pulled free and walked out of the command deck. Behind him, the Valari officers exchanged uncertain glances. They had just given command of their warriors to a creature they did not understand. Only time would tell if that was wisdom or madness. The War Council chamber was a place of tradition. Maps of star systems covered the walls, marked with the positions of fleets and the boundaries of empires. Valari generals sat in a circle, their silver skin gleaming under soft lights, their uniforms decorated with medals earned across centuries of service. Tai stood in the center of the circle. He felt like a specimen being examined. General Nari was the oldest and most respected of the council members. Her hair had turned white with age, and her face carried the marks of 100 battles. She had served 3 generations of Valari rulers, and she had never lost faith in the old ways. She looked at Tai the way a predator looks at something small and beneath its notice. "So," she said, "this is the human who will save us. Tell me, creature, have you ever commanded a fleet? Have you ever directed 10,000 soldiers in battle? Have you ever held the lives of millions in your hands? No, Tay admitted. Then what possible wisdom can you offer us? Tay walked to the central display and brought up a map of the war zone. Red markers showed Keth positions. Blue markers showed what remained of the Valari fleet. There was a lot more red than blue. Your fleet engages the Keth in direct combat, he said. You line up your ships, they line up theirs, and you fire at each other until someone dies. Is that correct? That is how civilized species conduct warfare, General Nari said stiffly. And how has that been working? Silence. No one wanted to answer. Tay pointed at the map. You have lost every major battle in this war. Your fleet is half the size it was 2 months ago. At this rate, you will have no ships left within 60 days. And yet you keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. General Nari stood, her eyes flashing with anger. You dare to insult our methods. The Velari way of war has served us for 1,000 years. Against enemies who fought the same way. The Keth do not fight the same way. They strike supply convoys. They attack civilian populations. They use deception and ambush. They break every rule you hold sacred, and they laugh while you die honorably. Then what do you suggest? That we become like them? That we abandon our principles? Tay shook his head. I suggest that you stop fighting their war and start fighting yours. Right now, you are playing a game they invented. You will never beat them at their own game. But if you change the rules, if you fight in ways they do not expect, you can win. He pulled up new data on the display. The Keth fleet is powerful, but it has weaknesses. Their supply lines stretch across 3 systems. Their command structure is rigid. They follow orders without question, which means if you disrupt their leadership, their entire army becomes confused, and they have never faced guerrilla tactics. They do not know how to fight an enemy they cannot see. Commander Siak leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing? We stop trying to destroy their fleet. Instead, we hurt them where they are weak. We hit fuel depots, supply convoys, communication relays. We make them afraid to move without looking over their shoulders. We turn every shadow into a threat and every quiet moment into a chance for attack. General Nari's face twisted with disgust. This is cowardice. This is the warfare of thieves and assassins, not soldiers. This is the warfare that kept my ancestors alive when they faced enemies with better weapons, better numbers, and better resources. Tay's voice did not rise, but something in it hardened. On Earth, we call it guerrilla warfare. Small groups striking fast and disappearing before the enemy can respond. It is not about honor. It is about survival. And if we adopt these methods, what makes us different from the Keth? Tay met her eyes. The Keth attack civilians. They destroy for pleasure. They conquer because they enjoy causing pain. I am not asking you to become them. I am asking you to use every tool you have to protect your people. There is nothing dishonorable about that. Queen Lyra, who had been watching silently from her throne, finally spoke. Enough. General Nari, I understand your concerns, but our current strategy is failing. We must adapt or die. I am giving the human command of a strike force. He will train them in his methods, and we will see what results he achieves. Nari bowed her head, though her jaw remained tight. As you command, my queen. The strike team was assembled the next day. 50 Velari soldiers, chosen not for their medals or their family names, but for their willingness to try something new. Among them was a young pilot named Hana. Hana had once been gentle. She had grown up on a peaceful colony world, studied art, dreamed of becoming a sculptor. Then the Keth came. They killed her parents, her brother, her friends. They burned her home and left her with nothing but memories and rage. She had joined the military because she wanted revenge. She did not care about honor or tradition. She just wanted to make the Keth suffer. When she saw the human standing before the assembled soldiers, she felt nothing but doubt. "This is our new commander?" she muttered to the soldier beside her. "He looks like he would break if you breathed on him too hard." Tay heard her. He smiled slightly, but did not respond to the insult. "I know what you are thinking," he said to the group. "You are thinking that I am small, weak, and soft. You are thinking that I have no right to lead Velari soldiers. You are probably right." He began to pace slowly before them. "But I am not here to lead you into battle the way you are used to. I am here to teach you a different kind of fighting, the kind that does not care about size or strength, the kind that turns your weaknesses into advantages and your enemy's advantages into weaknesses." He stopped in front of Hana. "You. What is your name?" "Hana." "Why did you join the military, Hana?" Her eyes went cold. "The Keth killed my family. I want to kill them back." Tay nodded. "Anger is a weapon, but only if you control it. If it controls you, you become reckless. You make mistakes. You die, and your enemies laugh." He looked at the entire group. "I will teach you to use your anger without letting it use you. I will teach you to think like predators, not prey." Training began immediately. Tay worked them hard. He taught them to move silently, to communicate with hand signals, to attack from unexpected angles. He taught them close combat, how to fight in tight spaces where size became a disadvantage. He showed them how to make weapons from anything, how to set traps, how to disappear. At first they struggled. The Velari were used to formal combat, to standing in lines and firing in volleys. Tai's methods felt wrong to them, like wearing clothes that did not fit. But slowly, they began to understand. Hana was the first to truly grasp it. Her anger, which had made her reckless before, became focused. She learned to wait, to watch, to strike only when the moment was perfect. She learned that patience was not weakness, but the greatest weapon of all. One night, after a particularly brutal training session, she approached Tay. "Why do you fight?" she asked. "Really? You have no family here, no home. Why risk your life for strangers?" Tay was quiet for a long moment. "On Earth, there is a saying, the only thing evil needs to win is for good people to do nothing. I have seen evil win too many times because good people were afraid to act. I decided I would not be one of those people." "Are you not afraid?" "I am terrified. Every day, every moment, fear never goes away." "Then how do you keep going?" Tay looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "Because the alternative is worse. Because if I run away from every fight, I would have to live with myself. And that would be harder than dying." Hana considered his words. She thought about her family, about the flames that had taken them, about the rage that had kept her alive. And she understood something she had not understood before. Courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was fear that had learned to move anyway. "Teach me," she said. "Teach me everything you know." Tay nodded. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we begin Operation Ember Fall, and nothing will ever be the same." The asteroid field had no name. On Keth maps, it was simply labeled as Sector 7G, a worthless collection of rocks far from any valuable territory. That was why they had built their fuel depot there. Hidden among the tumbling stones, protected by only a small garrison, it fed 3 entire battle groups. The Keth commander of the depot was named Vex. He was old for his kind, with a cracked shell and dull eyes. He had been assigned to this backwater post as a punishment for failures in previous campaigns. Every day he watched supply ships come and go, counting the rotations until he could retire to somewhere warm. He never saw the humans coming. Tay's strike team approached from the shadow of a massive asteroid, their ships running silent with minimal power. They had painted their hulls with light-absorbing material, making them nearly invisible against the darkness of space. The Keth sensors, designed to detect conventional fleet movements, registered nothing unusual. 20 soldiers in total. 5 small ships against a fuel depot that supplied enough energy to power a small armada. "Remember the plan," Tay said over the communication channel. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Team 1 disables the sensors. Team 2 plants the charges. Team 3 handles any guards we meet. We are in and out in 15 minutes. No heroics, no unnecessary risks." Hana piloted the lead ship. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her heart beat fast. This was her first real mission. Everything they had trained for came down to this moment. "Beginning approach," she said. The ships slipped through gaps in the asteroid field, like fish through coral. They landed on the depot's outer hull, maglocks engaging silently. The soldiers moved quickly, cutting through airlocks with precision tools that made no sound. Inside, the depot was quiet. Most of the Keth garrison was asleep, confident in their isolation. The few guards on patrol were tired and bored, their attention wandering. They did not wander long. Tay had taught his soldiers the art of silent elimination, a hand over the mouth, a blade across the throat, bodies lowered gently to the floor. One by one, the guards fell without ever raising an alarm. Team 2 reached the main fuel storage. The tanks stretched into the darkness, massive cylinders filled with enough volatile material to destroy a small moon. Hana placed the charges carefully, following Tay's exact instructions. Too much explosive would vaporize them along with the depot. Too little would merely damage it. The balance had to be perfect. "Charges set," she reported. "Timer activated. We have 12 minutes. All teams withdraw to ships. Nice and easy." They were almost to the airlocks when everything went wrong. A young Keth guard, barely more than a hatchling, had been hiding in a storage closet. He had heard the sounds of fighting and frozen in fear, but when he saw the aliens retreating, something in him snapped. He lunged for the nearest alarm panel. Tay saw him move. He reacted without thinking, throwing his knife across the corridor. The blade caught the guard in the shoulder, spinning him away from the panel. But the guard's claw had already touched the button. Sirens screamed through the depot. Red lights flooded the corridors. "Run!" Tay ordered. All pretense of stealth was abandoned. The soldiers sprinted for their ships, boots pounding against metal floors. Behind them, Keth warriors poured from their barracks. They were fast, their 6 legs carrying them with terrifying speed. Energy weapons fired, scorching the walls where the strike team had been moments before. Hana reached her ship first. She threw herself into the pilot seat and powered up the engines. "Everyone on board! Move!" The last soldier was climbing through the airlock when a Keth warrior grabbed his leg. Hana did not hesitate. She grabbed a pulse pistol and fired through the opening, hitting the warrior between its compound eyes. The soldier tumbled inside, and she sealed the door. "Go! Go! Go!" The ships launched into the asteroid field. Behind them, the depot's defense guns opened fire, filling the space with deadly light. Hana weaved between rocks, her reflexes pushed to their limit. A bolt struck her ship's wing, sending sparks flying across the cockpit. "Timer at 2 minutes," Tay reported from his ship. "Keep moving. Do not stop for anything." The asteroid field seemed endless. Rocks the size of buildings tumbled past, any one of which could crush them in an instant. Hana flew on instinct, letting something deeper than thought guide her hands. Then, behind them, the depot exploded. The blast was silent in the vacuum of space, but the light was blinding. A sphere of fire expanded outward, consuming asteroids, vaporizing debris, turning the sector into a sea of flame. The shockwave hit Hana's ship and sent it spinning. She fought the controls, struggling to stabilize. For a terrible moment, she thought they were going to crash. Then the ship steadied, and she found herself floating in the aftermath of their destruction. Where the depot had been, there was nothing but glowing dust. "All teams report," Tay said. One by one, the voices came in. All 5 ships had survived. 2 soldiers were wounded, 1 seriously. But they were alive. Against all odds, they had won. News of the attack spread through the Keth Dominion like a disease. For the first time in the war, they had been surprised. They had been hurt. They had been afraid. The High Command demanded answers. How had the enemy found the depot? How had they penetrated its defenses? Who was responsible for this humiliation? But there were no answers. The attackers had come from nowhere and vanished into nothing. All that remained was the debris of what had once been their secure supply line. 3 Keth battle groups, suddenly without fuel, were forced to withdraw from the front lines. The pressure on the Valari fleet eased just enough to let them breathe. Queen Lyra summoned Tay to the command deck. When he arrived, still wearing his combat suit, she looked at him with new eyes. "You did what our entire fleet could not," she said. "You hurt them." "This is only the beginning," Tay replied. "The Keth will be angry now. They will hunt for us. That is good. Angry enemies make mistakes. What is your next target?" Tay brought up a map. "Communication relay here. If we destroy it, their Eastern Fleet loses contact with the High Command for at least 3 days. During that time, they will be unable to coordinate attacks. Your ships can pick off their isolated squadrons one by one." Lyra nodded slowly. "You are changing everything. Our generals do not know what to make of you. They do not have to like me. They just have to let me work." Over the following weeks, Tay's strike team became ghosts. They appeared without warning, struck with devastating precision, and disappeared before the Keth could respond. Supply convoys vanished. Outposts went silent. Even the Keth homeworld received reports of sabotage in systems they thought were secure. Tay recruited more soldiers, not from the ranks of honored veterans, but from the outcasts and the desperate. Among them was a Valari officer named Wu. Wu had once been a promising strategist. He had written papers on unconventional warfare, on the value of flexibility and surprise. The High Command had exiled him for his dangerous ideas. They said he was a disgrace to Valari tradition. Now he stood before Tai with hope in his eyes. "I have read your reports," Wu said. "You are doing everything I dreamed of doing. Everything they told me was impossible." Tay smiled. "Nothing is impossible. Some things are just harder than others." Wu became Tai's second-in-command, handling logistics and planning while Tay led missions in the field. Together they built something new, an army that fought not with honor but with intelligence, not with strength, but with cunning. Hana grew into a warrior unlike any the Valari had seen. She combined their natural grace with human brutality, moving like water and striking like lightning. The soldiers called her the Shadow, and even the Keth learned to fear that name. The tide of the war had not turned completely. The Keth still held vast territories. Their fleets still darkened the skies of a dozen worlds. But for the first time, they were uncertain. For the first time, they faced an enemy they did not understand. And deep in his heart, Tay knew that the real battle was still to come. The Keth overlord stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Endless Hunger. He was twice the size of his warriors, his shell black as the void between stars, his eyes burning with ancient malice. For 300 years, he had led the Dominion to victory after victory. No species had ever stopped his advance. No enemy had ever made him doubt. Until now, reports covered his tactical display, supply lines destroyed, outposts eliminated, patrol squadrons vanishing without a trace. And always, the same pattern, strikes from nowhere, attackers who moved like shadows, an enemy that refused to fight fairly. "Bring me the human," the Overlord commanded. "I want to see the creature that has caused us such trouble." His advisors shifted nervously. "Overlord, we do not know where the human is. We do not know how to find him." "Then burn the Valari homeworld. Burn it until there is nothing left but ash. If we cannot find one human, we will destroy everything he is fighting to protect." The Keth Armada gathered above Vel Prime. 2,000 ships, carrying millions of warriors, enough firepower to crack a planet in half. The Volari fleet, battered and exhausted, formed a defensive line between the enemy and their world. Queen Lyra stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the Keth formation fill her screens. Beside her, Commander Siak was grim-faced and silent. General Nari had died 3 weeks ago, leading a rearguard action that saved a civilian convoy. Even she had finally accepted that the old ways were not enough. "They outnumber us 3-1, Siak said. "Even with everything the human has taught us, this battle will be difficult." Lyra nodded. "But not impossible. Where is Tai?" "He is preparing. He says he has a plan." Tay had spent 2 days in the war room studying the Keth formation, analyzing their command structure, looking for weaknesses. He had found one. The endless hunger was the heart of the Keth fleet. The Overlord controlled everything from that ship, every order, every strategy, every movement. The Keth warriors were loyal and fearless, but they were also dependent. Without the Overlord's guidance, they became confused, hesitant, lost. If the Overlord fell, the fleet would fall with him. "We cannot break through their lines to reach the flagship," Wu said when Tay explained his plan. "Their defenses are too strong." "We do not need to break through," Tay replied. "We need to make them think we are somewhere else, then slip past while they are distracted." The plan was complex. It required perfect timing, absolute coordination, and more luck than any sane person would rely on. But it was the only chance they had. The battle began at dawn. Vel Prime's sun rising behind the defending fleet like a blessing from the heavens. The Keth attacked in their traditional formation, wave after wave of ships crashing against the Volari lines, relying on superior numbers to overwhelm the defenders. But the Volari did not fight the way the Keth expected. Instead of holding their positions, the Volari ships retreated in controlled chaos. They appeared to be breaking, fleeing in panic. The Keth commanders, eager for victory, ordered a full pursuit. That was their mistake. Hidden in the debris fields around Vel Prime, hundreds of mines waited. The Volari had spent weeks seeding the space with explosives, creating a deadly maze that only they knew how to navigate. The pursuing Keth ships flew straight into the trap. Explosions ripped through the Keth vanguard. Ships collided with each other, trying to avoid the mines. Formations broke apart, communication channels filled with screaming and confusion. And in that moment of chaos, Tay's strike team made their move. A single ship, small and fast, launched from behind a Volari cruiser. It carried Tay, Hana, Wu, and 20 of their best soldiers. They flew straight toward the endless hunger, their ship broadcasting false identification codes stolen from captured Keth vessels. The flagship's defenses registered them as friendly. By the time the gunners realized their mistake, the ship had already docked. "We are inside," Hana reported, beginning infiltration. The corridors of the endless hunger were dark and humid, designed for creatures that preferred shadow and moisture. The strike team moved quickly, eliminating guards with silent efficiency. They had trained for months. They were ready. But the Keth were not fools. Alarms began to sound. Warriors poured from side passages, their mandibles clicking with rage. The strike team found themselves surrounded. "Keep moving," Tay ordered. "I will handle this." He stepped forward alone, pulling 2 pistols from his belt. The Keth warriors towered over him, their claws gleaming, their eyes filled with contempt. "One small human," the lead warrior hissed. "You think you can stop us?" Tay fired. The next 30 seconds were chaos. Tay moved like nothing the Keth had ever seen, rolling, ducking, spinning, firing. He was not stronger than them. He was not faster than them. But he was more unpredictable. Every time they thought they had him, he was somewhere else. When the shooting stopped, 7 Keth warriors lay dead. Tay was bleeding from a dozen cuts, one arm hanging uselessly at his side, but he was still standing. "Go," he said to his team. "I will catch up." Hana wanted to argue, but she knew there was no time. She led the remaining soldiers toward the command deck, while Tay held the corridor, buying them precious seconds. The Overlord was waiting for them. He stood alone in the center of the command deck, surrounded by screens showing the battle outside. His guards lay unconscious around him. He had dismissed them when he saw the humans coming. He wanted to face these creatures himself. "So," he said, his voice like stones grinding together. "You are the insects that have caused me such inconvenience." Hana raised her weapon. "Surrender. Your fleet is in chaos. Your commanders are dead. It is over." The Overlord laughed. It was a terrible sound. "You think killing me will end this? The Dominion has ruled for 1,000 years. We have crushed hundreds of species. We will crush you too, whether I live or die." "Maybe," said a voice from behind Hana, "but not today." Tay stumbled through the doorway, his body broken but his eyes still burning with defiance. He walked past his soldiers until he stood face to face with the Overlord. "You are barely alive," the Overlord observed. "And still you fight. Why?" Tay smiled. "Because that is what humans do. We fight when we are tired. We fight when we are hurt. We fight when everyone tells us to give up." He took another step forward. "My ancestors crossed frozen mountains with nothing but animal skins. They sailed across oceans in wooden boats. They walked into burning buildings to save children they had never met." Another step. "You call us weak because we are soft. You call us primitive because we are young. But we have survived everything our universe could throw at us. Ice ages, plagues, wars that killed millions. We are still here." He was close enough to touch the Overlord now, close enough to see the uncertainty flickering in those ancient eyes. "We do not stop," Tay said. "Ever." He moved. The Overlord was fast, but Tay was faster. He had kept one knife hidden, a small blade, barely enough to cut fruit. But he knew exactly where to strike. The blade slipped between the plates of the Overlord's armor, finding the soft flesh beneath. It was not a killing blow, but it did not need to be. Tay pressed a button on the knife's handle. The electrical charge was meant for disabling engines. It was never designed for use against living creatures, but it worked just as well on organic tissue as it did on machines. The Overlord screamed. His body convulsed, sparks flying from his shell, his eyes going dark. He collapsed to the floor and did not move again. Outside, the Keth fleet fell apart. Without the Overlord's commands, ships collided with each other, fled in random directions, surrendered to Valari vessels that pursued them. The battle was over. Tay sat down heavily, his back against a console. Hana knelt beside him, trying to stop the bleeding from his wounds. "You crazy fool," she said, her voice breaking. "You could have died." Tay laughed weakly. "Could have. Did not. Good day." 6 months later, Queen Lyra stood before a crowd on Orin Prime. The same great hall where she had begged for help now hosted a celebration. Representatives from 100 species filled the seats, their voices rising in applause. The Keth Dominion had retreated to their home systems, their power broken. For the first time in a century, the galaxy was at peace. "We did not win this war alone," Lyra said. "We won because one being from one small world refused to accept defeat. He taught us that strength is not about size or numbers. It is about will, about refusing to give up, about standing when everyone else sits down." She turned to where Ty stood at the edge of the stage. He looked uncomfortable in his formal clothes, fidgeting like a child forced to attend a ceremony. "I offer you anything you desire," Lyra said. "Titles, lands, a place in our government. Name it, and it is yours." Tay shook his head. I am just a cargo hauler. I was only passing through. Lyra smiled. Then at least stay for the celebration. He stayed. But the next morning, his ship was gone. He had left a note for Hana. The galaxy has better things to do than worship one human. Keep fighting, keep teaching, and never forget what you are capable of. Hana became a legend. She commanded the new Valari defense fleet, trained in methods that combined their grace with human cunning. Wu built an academy where young officers learned that honor and wisdom were not enemies. And on Orin Prime, they built a statue. It showed a single figure standing in a crowd of giants, small, soft, unremarkable, but standing nonetheless. Beneath it, they carved words in 100 languages. The same words that Tay had spoken when he first stepped forward in that crowded hall. I will fight. The galaxy would remember. When the darkness came, when hope seemed lost, when everyone else looked away, a human stood up, and everything changed.